Hello everyone, this is FlipTaco here in OTAKU Approved, bringing you another episode of Under the Box. This time we take a peek at Ubisoft, actually. Specifically, we're taking a look at the whole, Ubisoft acquired, is publishing World in Conflict, Soviet Assault for the PC, but they decided to cancel the console versions that were coming out as well. I'm trying to think to myself, why did they do that? That was a bad move on their part, and with the simple gameplay design that obviously works, see my review for a good review score. Again, it's they decided to still cancel it, and I come up with a theory that they were afraid of publishing a RTS game to go against their console RTS game, EndWAR, and and the every time I keep thinking about it, I'm like, holy crap, EndWAR might have just ripped off some things from World in Conflict. So let's get down to the specifics, shall we? I posted a blog about this too on another website. Um, Again, it was fear of competition. They feared that it was, like that World in Conflict Soviet Assault might be able to, outright beat EndWAR, get better review scores and get a bigger community. And Ubisoft sitting there would be like, okay, we're not doing that again. But I do notice a good amount of similarities. One of the two main things between these RTS games, there's no base management or resource management. There's no need to build a base, no need to go out and get the resources to fund your war effort. You know, that could be a given. Like other RTS games do that. But I noticed some other similarities as well. Now, both games have kind of like the spawn units instantly thing. Like you have a certain amount of points to use, and you use those points to spend on units, and then once you do that, in both games, they basically airlift those units in. In World of Conflict, you get a military cargo plane to fly in there and just to do a low drop of your units, and then in EndWAR, it's a helicopter drop. Like, and I'm like, and the points as well. Like, okay, in World Conflict, you got a certain amount of points, but you get more points over time, and if you lose units, you get more points. You get the points you spend on those units back, but at a slower pace. And in EndWar, you get points. You get continual amount of points, and then you get more points for capturing the areas and stuff as well. So, um, another thing, the objectives to this game were similar. Like in World in Conflict, um, the prime game type to play is domination. Like you just go in the map. There's a certain amount of points to take in the game. If you hold out more areas in your opposing team, you eventually kind of lower their ticket system on them. Kind of like Battlefield's Conquest. Hold majority of the map, and you just keep kicking ass. In EndWar, it's the same idea. You you hold the nodes and stuff like that, and and then you just freaking like eventually, if you hold majority of them, the other team will lose. And then when I thought about it even more, like they both had a tact, like they both had tactical support system. Obviously, World in Conflict was much more detailed, but ideally, EndWar had the same thing going on to it. Like of course, we'll go with the airstrikes. That's a given. Any game, any RTS game, you might want some airstrikes to go in and plow the area like a madman. EMP, I gotta give it to them. That's their thing. But tactical nuclear strikes, and I'm like, tactical nuclear strikes that won't make much devastation, but will definitely help turn the tide. Where have I done this before? Oh, World in Conflict. You could also probably say Red Alert too, because Soviets had a nuke, but each side had their own devastating weapon. Uh, Other than that, the unit structure was actually very similar onto it as well, but it was different because World Conflict was more detailed. As in, there were actually a division that you could choose to play. You can, like, there were four groups: infantry, armor, support, and air. And like of course they're more detailed, but like EndWAR, helicopters, armor, transport, infantry, artillery, same kind of like the same thing. And again, I just noticed like a lot of similarities between these two games, and I think, and of course, one of the main things that EndWAR is lacking is a good storyline for the single player. Like I'm replaying it again, and for the PS3, and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, there's no really good story to follow. There's like very little cutscenes, no characters to follow in the game, and the only way you can get your story is by buying the book, which I do have, which is a pretty good book actually. Helps really get into the nitty gritty of the story. And I'm wondering, oh, they could have just used this and just put it in the game. Help me concentrate on the story. Help me keep attached. World in Conflict and the expansion pack Soviet Assault did had a really good storyline to follow. Like there was characters in the game that you were following, and the cutscenes and the plot was very solid. It made me still want to play the single player. EndWAR it didn't. It just like play the single player if you want. In Soviet Assault and World in Conflict, you want to play it. You know, like it just made you want to play it. EndWAR is like, oh, we're just here. We don't have a lot, but we're here, and you're saying to yourself, multiplayer. Yeah, but that is my theory that Ubisoft was afraid that if they did release it for the console, that it would, you know, tip the balance and people will be playing Soviet Assault over EndWAR, and they put a lot of, and Ubisoft, the publisher, helped out Ubisoft Shanghai to put in a lot of effort into their first RTS title, and just publishing another game another development, a game that's developed outside the company, and then doing it and it does better. It's like they're saying to it might like like Ubisoft might say to itself, we just lost morale. We suck at making RTS games if they did that. So, and now we see EndWAR releasing for the computer, and I don't have I seriously don't have high hopes for it because I won't go out and buy it. That's one thing for sure. The reason why it was made for consoles because of the communication support. Like we have headsets and it made things a lot easier to help micromanage our units. With if it goes on the computer, all I need is my mouse and keyboard. Every essential RTS player needs for computer experience. I don't need a mic. I could just click my units and there I need to go. I don't need a headset. Like yeah, it'll make things easier, but I'd rather do tactical precision with the mouse and keyboard. Now sometimes I have a hard time with the controller and cycling my units, but I mainly it should just stick with the console. But you know, it's Ubisoft. If they want to do it, go ahead. It's because it's hard to distinguish EndWAR itself. Like yeah, voice support, but mouse and keyboard. You got other RTS titles like World in Conflict. You got the CNC series of both, CNC and Red Alert. You also got Company of Heroes, Warhammer 40K series. Yeah, you're going up against the big guns of competition. So, like overall, I would I just wish that you know, they just made a console version of World in Conflict Soviet Assault because I would have bought it instantly and I would have instantly loved it because I know what it would be like. Like obviously it would be on the controller, but it was simple gameplay mechanics. It was just simple. Spawn units, move them, attack other units, hold the points. That's it. That's all you need to do. You call in your own support, but yeah. But that was my theory on why Ubisoft did not release World in Conflict Soviet Assault for the consoles. Again, this is FlipTaku here on Under the Box, Ubisoft, Ubisoft theory. FlipTaku signing out.